He's just recording.
I see. Okay. So we've got Anish, Kevin, and we've got someone else. Did anyone post the workshop link in Slack? Let's see. At channel, join the workshop, or oh, hello. So let's just wait a minute or two for everyone to hop on. free.co/schedule. Great. Hello. Just waiting a few more minutes for more people to hop on. Okay, we've got a decent amount of people here right now, which is great. And I think we can, oh, people are still coming in, so let's just wait until, say, 1:20 or so. It would be great if I could see some more faces rather than just a block of icons. So if you want to, you can show your webcam. Only if you want to. I don't want to force you. Okay, I think I'll start right now. So let's see. Can you guys all see my screen? So I'm assuming that everyone can see my screen right now. So I'll be running this quick intro to computer science class and a little bit more about me. My name is Jonathan Lay, and just some of the projects that I've been working on. Back in 2018, I started a website hosting company, and then that has over 300 customers now. So that was kind of like the start of me just really wandering around in like computer science. Before then, which I'll get to, I started by just creating quick games, which is what we'll do today. And then in 2019, I started like mining cryptocurrencies, which I thought was fun. It doesn't really have to do with computer science, but it just shows you how broad everything is. And then like this year, I've really just been scaling all of my projects by running scripts and such to have servers be completely automated. And so right now I'm an organizer for Hack3. I'm helping to develop a website for a survey that's going to be used at Harvard University. So that's pretty cool. And then I'm also helping out in my free time for a startup that's called Antigen Diagnostics creates COVID-19 antibody tests. And next week, after Hack 3 stops, I'll be interning at a startup called Fluid Stack, which is, imagine it as like an Airbnb, but for compute power. So that's pretty innovative. So I just found it online. A bit of background on me. I started back in 4th grade by programming quick things in Scratch, which I will do right now, or in a few minutes. And then I started to create games in processing, which is kind of like simple Java. So Scratch is like a drag and drop, and then I got into like really simple Java, and nowadays I use like regular Java. Originally, I kind of hated computer science if it wasn't just games, but then I just continued learning more algorithms and such, and I passed a point where I started loving it. And nowadays I go to the Acton-Boxborough Regional High School, Acton, Massachusetts, and on the right you can see an image of me as a really small boy attending like this computer camp. So I just went to some camps, played games, and made some games, and that was my start. And right now, if you're here, you're probably like a beginner. You might think to yourself, hey, what should I learn? I've heard all of these terms like Python, HTML, CSS, Java. What are these? And then what is like AI or like augmented reality? And sometimes it can just feel like a giant block of stuff that you have no idea and you don't really know how to approach it. And so that's why together we're going to start to navigate this. And you're the same as the 17 people in this meeting right now, actually 18 because I just admitted someone else. Everyone on this team is a beginner, and we're just going to go through this together. At first, I wanted to introduce you guys to two like major categories that I categorize computer programmers as. On one hand, you have some front-end developers. These create websites, and so we can call them like client side. If you're going to create a website, for example, then you'll need like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, etc. And on the other hand, there are what I like to call back-end engineers. So these are the people who create algorithms. And so these are two main categories, just in my opinion. But in addition to that, there are so many other people, right? There are people who develop apps, which you might want to categorize as someone who develops for front end, right? Because we like to think of like front end as something that a user would see. Meanwhile, back end is something that would handle what the users would see, like a server. So, for example, a client website, just full of design stuff. Meanwhile, server is what might go into like a data center. So a data center is just a huge building with thousands and thousands of servers. And each one of these servers runs some things called algorithms, right? And then that's what we're going to be learning a bit about today. So we're just going to be covering a bit more of like that back-end side by learning some algorithms, not design side, but yeah. And so algorithms, let's think of them as processes that you can define. So let's go through, say, an example right now. We've got 10 names: Andy, Bernie, Casey, Donald, Eric, Frank, Gabe, Helen, Ian, and John. So we might want to think, hey, what number is Eric at? Right? And does anyone happen to have any ideas on how you would solve this?
Just check about the index of Eric, since these are already in indexes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't really hear you.
Yeah, like we will be looking forward for the index of Eric. Like
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't really know how to say her name, but Udian, is that how you say it?
Udayan.
Udayan? Okay, cool. So Udayan just basically said that we should loop through at each index. This is what like the 0 through 9 is. like an index, and then see what name is associated with. So first we can loop through 0 through 9, and then we can check the numbers to see what name is there. It's like 0, and then 1, 2, right? So first name is like Andy, second one is Bernie, or third one is Casey, Donald, and then when we get to the fifth one, then we're at Eric. And then so we can see that Eric is the fifth one, or in this case, because my numbers start at 0, then Eric is associated with number 4. So that's basically like a general way to think about algorithms. So that's what we're going to be covering a little bit of today, just playing around with algorithms. All right, so right now I just wanted to introduce you all to a thing called Scratch. Have you guys ever heard of Scratch? Yeah, so
No.
Yeah, so Scratch is something that's developed by MIT. It's just like this drag and drop thing for you to visualize an algorithm. And in our Java classes starting at 2, you can convert this to actual code. So if we say move 10 steps, and we have events. So when the green flag is clicked right here, can you guys see this properly? So when the green flag is clicked, then I want this cat to move 10 steps. So when I click it, it moves 10 steps, right? So very simple. When I click the green flag, then it moves forward. If I want it to move backwards, I can do negative 10 steps, and then it moves backwards. So just very simple. And if we want to recreate the algorithm that I kind of talked about earlier, then maybe we want to repeat 10 things, and then I want to move 10 steps. If I want to repeat something 2 times, then I can do that as well. So this is just like a quick way to visualize things, which is very nice. And so this repeat block, yeah, let's call these blocks. This repeat block that you can see is something that's called a loop, right? We're looping through to get to some point. And I think all of you guys can understand that. So let's make a bit more complex things. We can have something called variables. So we can set my variable to 0. So this is basically, if you guys are dealing with math, then you know what variables are, right? But if you don't really know, variables are things that can vary a lot, hence the name variable. You can set it to be something, and then you can change it later on. So let's rename this to, say, x, perhaps. So x is 0, and then I want to move x steps each time. Okay. If I want to click this, then it doesn't move at all. If I want to say x is 5, then it moves forward 10 steps, right? It starts, loops through x, and then goes through again. So it moves a total of 10 steps. And then at the very end, let's show variable x, and let's change x by 5 right here. So can anyone guess what the end result of x would be? Does anyone have any idea? Okay, let's work through this together. So we start x off at 5. X is 5. We want to repeat it 2 times. First, I'm going to move x. So this cat moves forward 5. Then I'm going to be increasing x by 5. X is 10. And then I will be moving the cat by 10. So the cat moves a total of 15 steps. But then I increase x by 5 again. So it seems to me that x would end up as 15. Let's see if that is the case. And as you can see right up here, x is 15. So just you guys should all sign up for Scratch later on once I finish overviewing some things, and then just play around with all the things that you can create. So now let's see if x, so now we can add in these if blocks, right? If, and then let's say x is less than 50. So now we can drag in these variables. So if x is less than 5, then I want to say, let's see, looks, say x is less than 5. So if I run this, it doesn't run at all, and that's because this is less than 5. But if I set it to 10, then it'll say, or it should say, oh, no, actually, when we start at 5, we increase it by 5 again. Then if I want it to say x is less than 5, then I have to put that before the change place. And yep, it says x is less than 5. Or actually, x is less than 10. So what you see right over here is this if statement. So if something is true, then we can set another action. So for example, let's see, if x is less than 10, then perhaps we want to multiply, perhaps we want to multiply x by 2, just for fun. So, wait, yeah, change x by x times 2. Or yeah, done here. Times 2. And then if I run this at the very end, we see that the number is 54. Kind of interesting. Let's go through how this is. We start x is 5. We want to repeat 2 times. We start off by going over here. X is less than 10, so we change x by 1. So that happens 1 time. Now x is 6, right? And then we want to change x by x times 2. So we want to do x is equal to x times 2. And then now x times 2 is 12, which means that the total is now 18. And then I go up. So by this point, x is 18. When I loop around again, now x is 54, and then I show that. Does that make sense? So there are so many things that we can do in programming. But this is just like a really simple example. And a lot of the stuff that you will be developing revolves around creating such algorithms. And let's see, we can also have if statements, not just x is less than 10, for example, but if a word contains something else. So let's run this. Then because apple contains a, then this is always true. Pretty nice. If we want to set a string, for example, we can have multiple variables, but the thing is we can't always have the same variables, right? If there's x and I want to create a different variable, then the name needs to be different. So say I want to make a new variable, then this is random or name. Now name is, let's say, the name of the cat. Now I can do set name to be something. We always need to set variables. So say set name is Bob, and then if name contains a, then we want to basically say, name contains A. And then if we run this, nothing happens. But if we say the name contains B, we run it, and it says the name contains B. So we started off, there is X, which I set as a number, and if you guys are good at math, then you might know that numbers are essentially integers, right? In Scratch, we don't really need to deal with this, but later on, when we get into like things like Java, then you'll need to set integer x is equal to 5, right? And then name is a string. It's a string of text, so we will do that in Java as well. So this is just like a really simple place for you to come up with some ideas. So I think you guys should all sign up for Scratch right now to just get a feel for what type of algorithms that you can create, and then let me know what questions you have. But yeah, I forgot to say, you can sign up for Scratch at scratch.mit.edu. So just create something fun, try playing around with variables, lists, etc. And then at 2, there's a Java workshop happening, which is where you'll see how you can create these types of algorithms in actual code. But right now, you can just play around and then make the cat move around, etc. And then let me know if you have any questions. I think you guys should all be able to share screens as well if you guys run into issues. Yeah, I just want to introduce you guys to something a bit more advanced that I created. Um, when the green flag is clicked, then I have these two objects, these two beetles, and I have a forever loop that moves through and allows you to control them. So for example, I can use the arrow keys to move something, like turn. If you can see this yellow beetle, make it turn. And I can also use the WASD keys to move the other one. Um, and let's just take a look at how this is done. When we start off, we can initialize some items, like pointing direction, going to some place. And then after that, there's a forever loop that just makes it do
Sorry to
some things.
interrupt you.
Yeah.
It's like it's showing crash and nothing else. I think the screen is not shared.
I think you're sharing the
Oh,
wrong screen.
oh, whoops, sorry. Yeah, thanks. So when the green flag is clicked, then I can use arrow keys, WASD keys to move these beetles. Uh, this is done by having some things that initialize it when starting, and then I have this forever loop, which you guys shouldn't use forever loops that often, but at first we just set some variables, and then there's this controls thing, and this is what's called a function. So a function, imagine that as just a predefined set of code. When I run this, then I can create this function, controls, and then this is what controls is. So originally, this is what it would have looked like, right? There's this huge when the green flag is clicked command, but instead we've created a separate set of code called controls, and then we can just run it by just calling controls. So you can do things like calling a function. So that was something fun that I did. And you'll run into functions a lot in programming. This is because it's a lot neater to have like a central place where you're calling the functions and then functions on different files rather than having a huge file with a ton of code. So now you can split it up into many different files where there's like the central one that's saying what should happen next. Yeah, does that make sense? So in total, we covered a bit on functions, setting variables, loops, if statements, etc. So that should be enough for you guys to get started and playing around. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. Oh, hello, Nadine, I think that's how you say it. I covered a little bit of the basics on computer science using something called Scratch. This is just like a visualization software, really easy to use, made by MIT. And so I covered just creating variables, um, loops, if statements, functions, etc. Because you came a bit late, I don't want to say everything over again, but sign up at scratch.mit.edu. Just sign up there, create a project, and play around with it. See where you can take it. Yeah. You can create a lot of cool things on here. A lot of games, definitely. But to take this to the next level, in the next hour, you'll learn how to actually code a project, code algorithms, like how do you set variables in Java, for example. Yeah, so we're just here, I guess. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and yeah. Yeah, one cool thing that you can also do is create clones. Uh, for example, I have one cat. Uh, I have a cat in there, or actually, I think I have penguins. And every time, every like half a second or so, there's one penguin that's creating clones of other penguins. In programming, there are some things called classes, which are essentially frameworks for creating clones. Uh, and so what's really cool is that you can define like variables or attributes. For example, every single penguin has some color to it, right? And uh, all of them have an X position and a Y position. And every time we want to create a clone of it, we can just set a different X and Y. So it's kind of like a framework for creating clones. So remember that word, function, or classes, sorry. Yeah. So I think our time is almost up, so I'll head out of this meeting. Private message me in Slack if you have any questions. And there's a Java workshop coming up at 2. So that is where you can learn to actually code. So once you get a general idea of if statements, loops, etc., that'll come a lot easier. So I think I'll leave now. Yeah, thanks for coming, so you guys can head out.